Can Cade Cunningham rally and win league MVP this year after having the Detroit Pistons at the top of the Eastern Conference? We'll break it down coming up in today's episode, Locked On Pistons Podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Khahil. I've been covering the Detroit Pistons for the last 4 years, been a credential media member now for the last 3 years. I appreciate all of you guys who help make Locked On Pistons one of the best podcasts out there and making it your first listen of every single day. I also want to thank you guys for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network now in America. Check the numbers. We're now #1. I appreciate all of you, your guys' support. I'm sure all my colleagues appreciate all the support as well. In today's episode, we will discuss what do we want to see from the Pistons post All-Star break, and then also I want to get my guests' thoughts on some of these issues that are being talked about around the NBA. I talked about it a little bit like a few episodes ago, but I want to get our guests' thoughts on some of these issues around the NBA that's being talked about a lot, like tanking, all of that. But we're going to start off with, can Cade rally for MVP this year? And joining us is credential media member Zariq of Bully Ball Media, obviously friend of the podcast. Zar, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. I feel like my Locked On Six Man of the Year chain has been snatched by Griffin, so it's all good. um, but no, I'm good. It's been a busy season for me this year, which has been good. It's a good kind of busy. I've been doing a lot more games and then getting a lot more done with the camera this year than I have in the years past, and it's been like a lot of learning and experiencing and it's been really cool. It's been an incredible season to just like be a part of in some form or shape. Um, I feel like I think we discussed expectations before the season, and even then, I still don't think this was on either of our radars.
Yeah.
Just this level of just becoming the powerhouse in the Eastern Conference, and honestly in the NBA right now, they're #1 in the league, right?
Yep. By percentage, by like winning percentage, they are. That's crazy.
Yeah.
This has been a great year because me and Zar both have been in a lot more games this year. We've gotten to cover this team a lot closer during a season that has been incredible. It's been dope seeing Zar at the games and both of us getting a chance to be at more games. It's been super dope. And Zar does a great job over at Bully Ball Media. Make sure you guys follow him on all social media platforms. He does a tremendous job. I believe you just said, I think like a week and a half ago or something, Amen Thompson has joined Team Bully Ball. He's used some of the photographs that you took of him at the game. So Zar's doing a great job, man. Make sure you guys go check him out. But let's go ahead and talk about the first topic here. Can Cade Cunningham actually win MVP this year? I want to lay the foundation real quick before Zar gives his thoughts. The reason why this is a conversation, and we have to be honest, is because Nikola Jokic and SGA may miss. They may not be qualified for awards this year. They are very close, or Jokic is very close right now to just missing the 65-game rule. SGA has missed, I believe, 7 games so far, and he's expected to be out a little while due to this abdominal strain. So if they were either of them to miss the 65-game rule, that's what's opened up this MVP discussion. It's really between those two. But if those two were to miss 65 games, now it's going to be crazy. You got so many names that could potentially be sorted through. And if you look over at FanDuel, the top 2 odds right now, Shai is the favorite. I think that's fair. I think if he plays all 65 games, I think he'll probably win MVP. But right behind him, you got Jokic at plus 300. And in third place, according to FanDuel's odds, is Cade Cunningham at plus 1,400 to win the season MVP. Like you mentioned earlier, Zara, if we would have said this before the year, I think we would have been like, oh my, like what's happened? Like there's no way this is happening. Just give me your quick thoughts. Do you think it's possible that Cade actually could rally here and win MVP?
I mean, it's completely possible, especially when considering the games kind of benchmark that needs to be met. Cade's had a pretty healthy season this year. He's yet to miss really significant time. There's been a couple of instances where he missed a few games at a time, just with like I think it was a hip injury against the Wizards, and then a wrist injury that kind of made the shooting stretch a little rough there for a second. But but overall, though, it's been a pretty healthy season for Cade, and I think that's really playing to his advantage in the MVP race this year. And as long as he can stay healthy, I think he really has a shot. I think beyond just health as well, I feel like when looking at the play that he's had this year in relation to his workload. I saw JB talking about it earlier on, I think it was Road Tripping with Richard Jefferson,
Yep.
um, about the workload that he has. It's kind of one of one. And I know there was a talking point today on ESPN with Iman Shumpert, I think, about Jalen Brunson possibly having a heavier workload, especially offensively. But I feel like there's no one in the league that does more for their team than Cade Cunningham, and especially on both ends of the floor as well. I feel like he's made a leap defensively this year, and I feel like part of that also is, and this is something that I always kind of believed in with Cade, even going back to pre-draft, before he was ever wearing the Pistons red, blue, and white, was the fact that he is actually a high-level defender. It just needs to be a very competitive team that he's on in order to have that buy-in. And I feel like we've really seen that this year where he's completely bought in on the defensive end. And it's not like he's thinking about the burden he has on offense, because he's now kind of gotten in his flow and gotten used to JB's offense where he knows what to expect. And that allows him to lock into one of the most impressive defenses I've seen in my life of a Detroit Pistons team.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going to go with it. I was going to follow up and ask you, do you think the play on the court qualifies to be an actual MVP, removing the games played? But I agree with you. To quote JB Bickerstaff today, you were right. It is the Road Trip and Show podcast. I want to read the quote that was put out when he was talking about Cade. He says, quote, "If you have a guy that is most important to winning, but the record we have and the weight that he carries, there's no doubt in my mind that he is the MVP if the season ended today," end quote. So I try to be as objective as possible. It's something I try to thrive to be. So I'll be honest that if SGA and Jokic are healthy, I don't think there's much of a conversation for anybody outside of SGA and Jokic. Now, Jokic is very close to the 65-game rule. SGA, if he's able to come back, I think they're comfortably the two favorites. And I think that's fair. But is Cade playing like an MVP this year? I 100% think so. I mean, you brought up what he's doing on the defensive end of the floor. I want to focus on, we'll get to the defensive side of the floor, but I want to focus on this real quick. Cade for years to start his career, even last year, was not loved a ton by the advanced analytic community. A lot of it was due to his efficiency, which was a fair criticism of his. But for a while, he was looked at from a lot of people as heavy numbers, empty calories. Like there was questions about, could he have an actual impact on winning? The Pistons obviously were losing a ton and had a lot to do with the roster at that point. But the overall point I'm bringing here is that for years, Cade was thought of as this guy that maybe was empty calories, and the advanced analytics weren't the biggest fans of him. And you guys know that I'm into the numbers as well as the eye test. But if you look at Cade this year, now obviously I've been a big fan of Cade since rookie year. I knew that he was going to be great. I always believed. I didn't care about any of the other stuff at that time because I watched the games. I saw that his team sucked. Like, it is what it is. But what I think is helping Cade even more this year is really showing just how great he's been this year, is because I do put some stock in advanced analytics. I do think they do some good of a job to where it's like a part of your argument, not the whole thing, is that not only is Cade putting up incredible just box score numbers this year, like he's putting up 25 a game, 9.6 assists a game. I believe he's second in the NBA in assists, 5.6 rebounds. He's shooting 52% on twos, 46% from the field. He's getting to the free throw line 7 times this year. Like, he's getting better. His free throw rate's up to 37%. The team's obviously at the top of the East. All that stuff. All that stuff's great. But along with those numbers now, like I made a tweet today about it. I was like, Cade was the face of the ball, don't stop ethical hoops, guys. But now he's also the spreadsheet conqueror. Now, if you look at estimated EPM, which is a catch-all advanced analytic, where Cade wasn't always favored in, now he's top 10 in the NBA. He's right behind Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell, and Victor Wembanyama. Overall point is not only is Cade having this impact box score wise and putting up these crazy numbers, he's also clearly having impact on team wins. The advanced analytics are now also behind him as well. If you look at the on-off splits, he has a big impact on the Pistons winning. Obviously, when he's on the floor, they're winning his minutes by 9.2 points per 100 possessions. When he comes off the floor, they're only winning by 1.9 points per 100 possessions. That's a 7.3 point differential. So the team's much better when he's on the floor. He has a large impact. The advanced analytics are favoring him. The box score numbers look really great. I think Cade's season is honestly being a little bit underrated by people. I think he's been fantastic this year. And if he were to somehow win MVP with some guys missing games, would some people look back and say, yeah, well, if Jokic and SGA played, maybe it wouldn't have happened? Maybe, sure. But do I think he's playing at a level of an all NBA first team guy, that a guy that if he gets MVP votes, I don't think it would be absolutely insane? No, I don't think so. I think he's playing great this year. He's been absolutely fantastic.
I think it's also safe to say he's been the best player in the Eastern Conference, like
Yep.
hands down. Because when you look at the competition in the MVP standings, yeah, absolutely, I'm 100% in line with you on SGA and Jokic. But those are two players in the Western Conference, and when you look at the East, like I still have not seen a player that's had a better season,
To
and
back
a
you
more
up with that,
impressive.
I
Yeah,
can back you up with that. The top 5 odds of FanDuel, and I'll let you keep going. But to back you up, of the top 5 odds for MVP, Cade's the only one in the East. The other 4 are all in the Western Conference.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like when you look at the impact that's had, and the fact that Detroit, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they've beaten pretty much every single team that, they've been in conversations with amongst the
Yep.
top of the East. I feel like it's not remotely close in terms of who's the best. Like, I know there's been a conversation of best guard in the East or best whatever. I think point blank period, Cade Cunningham is the best player in the Eastern Conference this season.
Yeah, and I just want to go back to what you said about his defense as well. And I think it's to have a guy that is as impactful as he is offensively and carries the load that he does offensively, for him also to be an impactful defender is special. It's not something that you see many times throughout the across the league. Like, you'll see a few of those guys, like obviously Victor Wemby. Wemby's great and he's an alien. But Shai is a good defender. Ant is a good defender. There's not many. There's not many out there that are relied upon to provide all this offense and also be an impactful defender. I was joking on the podcast the other day that after the All-Star game, we saw Cade get like 4 blocks in the game, some
Yep.
crazy blocks at the rim. And I was like, who said Derek White is the best guard rim protector in the league? It's Cade Cunningham. I mean, this dude Cade is a defensive playmaker. So he overall impact, star offensive numbers, defensive playmaker. He's conquered the spreadsheets as well. Like I'd be happy. I think if he were to win MVP due to those two guys going out, I think he should be third. Is there anyone else that you think should be in the conversation with them outside of those two guys? If they were to not be out, is there anyone else you think we maybe are disrespecting by not giving them credit?
I mean, the points per game aspect of it, some people would say Luca maybe, but I think watching the games, I feel like I feel like people go too far one way or another with Luca. Sometimes they say, he's all stats, or that he
Yeah.
is just statistically the best player because he puts up this many points. But I do think he deserves a shout. And the top 5, I wouldn't say top 4. I think Wemby's been incredible, but honestly, and I will probably get hate for this, I do think Jalen Brunson deserves a little more shine in the MVP conversation, simply because when you look at the Knicks' success this year, I do think he has had a really large burden offensively, especially because I know Cat made the All Star team, but pretty much everyone they rely upon has kind of struggled with either health or production. And I will say I've been pretty impressed with Brunson, and I think in terms of scoring, he's truly like one of the best in the league, if not in that top 2 conversation. So I think Brunson definitely deserves a little more respect.
No, yeah, I respect it. Brunson's is a hell of a player. All the rivalry and all the trash talk, it only happens because you know how great that dude is on the other side of the floor. So Brunson's great. I do agree with you with the Luka shout out as well. But Cade is right there, man. He's having a tremendous year. Let me know what you guys think. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. Do you guys think that Cade Cunningham should win MVP if Jokic and SGA end up not making the 65 game rule? Let me know again. Comment section down below or over on Twitter. But coming up, I want to get Czar's thoughts on what he wants to see from the Detroit Pistons, the team with the best win percentage in the league right now, when we come back from the All-Star break. We'll break it down coming up. Today's episode is brought to you guys by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, like potentially Cade, future MVP, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, tickets, flights, the whole experience covered for you. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make it on a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. And now not only can you pick your cash, but it also can send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Use your profit boost on NBA Future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Now I've got to tell you guys about another one of our sponsors, Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communication is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. It works right from your phone or computer, and you can even keep your existing number. And Quo's smart AI tools automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlights the next steps so details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNBA. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNBA. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers with Quo. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, go check out the Everydayer Club. You get some really cool perks, such as you get to join the Locked On Pistons Discord server, where you can talk with me, other Pistons fans, other people a part of the Locked On Pistons community. During games, after games, before games, in between game days, whenever you want to talk Pistons, you can head over there and talk. And also, you will get Locked On Pistons ad-free, one clean listen. You don't have to worry about all the ads. You just get to hear basketball Piston talk for a full 30 minutes without all the ads. If you want to check out the Everydayer Club, head over to LockedOnPodcast.com/Everydayer Club to join today. Let's go ahead and talk about what Czar wants to see from this team post All-Star break. As of now, we just mentioned it. They are first in the NBA when it comes to win percentage. They are first in the Eastern Conference. We just got done talking about Cade potentially being an MVP option. Is there anything particular, Czar, that you are really watching for from this team when they come out of the All-Star break? Their first game will be against New York on Thursday. What are you watching for coming out of this break?
A few things. First, health is the biggest thing for the remainder of the season. As long as the guys stay healthy, I feel like what they've produced thus far should be pretty repeatable throughout the rest of the regular season, and ultimately hoping to maintain that throughout the playoffs. So that's number one. I also am looking at Cade's workload for the rest of the regular season. Just in terms of offensively, obviously they didn't go out at the deadline and add some high level shot creator or anything like that. But with more time and more chemistry, is there less on Cade's plate in terms of offensive burden? Obviously, that was something that was talked about in the Trajan Langdon press conference briefly I think it was last week, where they addressed the fact that Langdon says that yeah, he does have a high offensive burden, but that's just kind of by design, and there's ultimately a lot of ways to skin a cat. We believe in chemistry, defense, et cetera, et cetera. But you need to see less on Cade, and especially to maintain the level of production he's had going into ideally a deep playoff run. You need to see Cade have less burden and see the offense look better in non-Cade minutes. I think having Danis full time now, he's on a 2-year deal. Having him full time will be beneficial to sustaining the offense and getting more of a flow going. Because I think really having that kind of creator off the bench, who may not always be the most efficient scorer, but is a great playmaker for those around him, I think that'll open up a lot. And I'm also looking at this is a smaller one, but I'm looking at Kevin Huerter and just the Pistons rotation, and it's been a talking point throughout the entire season. And a lot of people have had disagreements on whether the Pistons shrink their rotation, keep it as is, because they are a deep team in terms of guys who are willing to step up each and every night. But to have that kind of synergy going into the playoffs is something that's really important. And I feel like if you're rolling out 11, 12 man rotations, or guys are in one night, not one night, I think that could be potentially something that's impacting a playoff run. I know JB really is kind of dead set on going with what he believes in, and I think that's a great idea and all. But it'd be good to know if Kevin Huerter is someone that you're going to look at as a guy you can rely on in the playoffs, or is Marcus Sasser someone who's going to get more minutes going into the playoffs, or are you going to shrink it down to 9 players? it's just a lot that's kind of in flux with the rotation. So that's another thing I'm really looking for. And I actually have one last thing is, um, how do they manage teams kind of throwing, uh, I don't know how to word this. How do they manage teams kind of throwing emotion at them? It was something that you talked about in a previous podcast where, emotions get high and, whatever, whatever. I think the Charlotte incident was what it was. But I think something that wasn't talked about in that Denver game a few weeks ago where the Nuggets came to Little Caesars Arena. And I thought this was like a great adjustment on Isaiah Stewart's behalf. I felt like Jonas Valanciunas was intentionally trying to get Stewart
Yep.
thrown out of the game. I felt like 100% that was part of their game plan because they know Isaiah Stewart can shut down um, highly skilled players like Nikola Jokic better than most players in the league. So if you can get him out of the game fast, you have a better advantage. And I think it's not specific to Stu at all, but I think this is something that more teams are going to try throughout the rest of the season, and seeing how the Pistons react to that and ultimately adjust to it is going to be a big thing. I'm more than anybody, I am always pro stand your ground and everything like that in terms of, getting tried on the court and everything like that. But I think there will be times where, yeah, that's necessary. But I also think there's going to be times where teams are intentionally going to be trying to throw you off your game. And knowing that you are kind of the hunted as the number one seed in the Eastern Conference and in the league, teams are going to be trying everything they can to get you off the court.
Yeah, I completely agree with you about the. I think that was actually a great example you gave about the Denver Nuggets game, because for sure Jonas was. I mean, at one point he had him in a headlock. He had Stu in a headlock trying to get, and Stu did a good job of just walking away, kind of just not engaging with it. So I think that is, and it kind of goes with what JB was talking about in that podcast today, and he talked about it after the last game they played before the break, when he was like, our guys, they play physical and they won't cross the line unless you make them cross the line. Like we're not the ones going out there crossing the line and stuff. So, and I think that example you just gave is a good piece of evidence to what JB is trying to say. So actually, I think that was an incredible point by you. The other thing that you said was, I think you can kind of summarize it to just like testing. You got to run a bunch of tests to figure out what can we actually trust and go with going into the playoffs. Like, now is the time. I'm not saying you throw games. You're not throwing games. You're not trying to sacrificing games. But you should probably be trying to test certain things like, hey, can we trust this going into the playoffs? Can we trust Huerter? Like, at that press conference you mentioned from Trajan Langdon, he mentioned that, I mean, I'm not going to bring up this player's name anymore, but it kind of was insinuated throughout the press conference that they didn't believe they had a guy that they trusted being a secondary creator, someone they could trust to run some pick and rolls, run some weak side actions. And they went and traded for a guy they believed that could provide spacing, but also could provide some of that. We haven't seen Huerter really play much. His shot hasn't went down, or hasn't been falling for him since arriving to the team. But in the few minutes we saw from him, he did move well without the ball. He did get a few nice drives to the rim. He has been finishing well at the rim this season. So do we see more Huerter on the floor in the second half of the season or after the All-Star break? And do we see him run some actions? Do we see them move Cade off the ball a little bit just to give him some breaks? Not to, run the offense through Huerter, but like, are they going to test out running the offense or letting other guys run the offense while Cade's off ball, or have Cade come off some off ball actions more often so Huerter can run the show? Or like you mentioned, maybe Sasser tries to get some more minutes. I think that definitely should be something that they're trying to do. Again, not throw games or lose, but they need to be trying to figure out, hey, we know teams are going to trap Cade in the playoffs. We're going to see it a lot. We know that we trust our team 4-on-3, but what's another way we can attack this? Do we trust Asar? Like, as teams are going to, I've been heavy on this for weeks now. We know that teams are going to put their big man on Asar Thompson in the playoffs. We know that's what's going to happen. They are going to roam off of Asar in the playoffs. They need to test out some things at the second half of the season. Like, okay, we know this is what we're seeing. This is the coverage we're going to see. How can we counter this? Do we put Asar on ball and have Cade come off those pin downs on the weak side corner when he comes off like an Isaiah Stewart pin down? Now you're already flowing to the rim and try to force that defender to guard Asar because he has the ball in his hands. So you use him more as a screener. Do you use him more as a DHO guy? Like, stuff like that is just really what I'm looking forward to. I want to see them test some of these things out. And I know Trajan said that he doesn't really know what's going to happen in the playoffs. We don't know yet. We don't know if they're this great or can they win a championship, all this stuff, whatever. And that's all true. But I think we do have some answers right now, or some questions we know the answer to, that maybe you might want to change it up. Like, For example, like I said, we know that teams are going to put bigs on Sasser. How do you plan to counter that? We know Cade's going to get trapped a ton. How do you plan to counter that? Use this time to do it. Can you move Cade off the ball a little more? Let's test that throughout the rest of the season. Can you trust Huerter? Can you trust Sasser? Should you put Paul Reed in the lineup a little bit more? Should you change the stuff like that needs to be all prep for the playoffs. So when you get to the playoffs, you're not just doing random stuff that you don't really have any data for. You're like, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's just try it. Like, you would like to have some of that data going into the playoffs for sure.
100%. And I think the SR point's also really interesting because he's someone in the last, like, honestly, couple of weeks, I felt like we've seen a lot more in terms of on-ball reps. I feel like we've seen a lot more confidence in him um, honestly, I thought he's looked a lot better on the ball than he had at certain points this far this season. Just because I think it was this time last year where Asar kind of had that stretch right when Dennis Schroeder was first getting to the team, or right when they were going to make that trade, where he started to get a lot of on-ball reps in terms of creating and finishing at the rim as well. And I feel like we started to see a little bit more of that. So that's also something I'm really hoping to see more of is Asar on ball.
Yeah, I think that, to me, I know that I'm the SAR guy, but I do think that that's the biggest question they got to answer, because these playoffs, they can't be your answer to teams putting a big on a SAR cannot be this year. Just take him off the floor and have what happened last year in the series against the Knicks, where you just severely dominate his minutes and you lose his not the minutes without a SAR, and you have to take him off the floor at the end of games, and now their star goes off. Like, you have to find some kind of answer. I think there's some answers you can go to, but they have to try to find those, because if the answer in the playoffs is, well, JB just sit Asar, I don't think that's good for the Pistons. Like, that's not a good answer to have. So I'd hope that they try to find some answers. But along with that, like we mentioned, Kevin Huerter, they feel pretty confident. They talk pretty glowingly of him. How are they going to use him? Do we see more of him? Whose minutes does he take? How do they put him on ball a little bit? Like, what are we going to see? So all that stuff that you mentioned, I think we need to see them test some things and figure out some answers going into the playoffs. Coming up though, I want to get Zara's thoughts. There's an issue that I'm not gonna lie, I feel pretty strongly about. I've been going at it recently.
Yeah.
on this situation. I want to hear Zara's thoughts. Does he disagree or agree with me? We'll talk about it. Probably you guys know where I'm going with this. We're gonna be talking about tanking a little bit. We'll break it down coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire. This is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. That gives you less stress, less time, and more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Again, that's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. There's another great way to support the podcast. To wrap it up here, I want to get Zara's thoughts on, Adam Silver had quite the busy weekend. He had a very busy press conference when he was asked about a lot. He was asked about Giannis and some, what was it, Kalishi,
yeah.
Some predictor betting or something. He was asked about that. He was asked a ton about what we're going to talk about here, tanking. He was asked about expansion teams. There's all kinds of things that are being talked about as an NBA community right now. And one thing in particular that I have been very strong about that I think directly impacts the Pistons and directly did impact the Pistons for the last 5-6 years. And really, if you want to go even deeper into the issue, I think the last 15 years, to be honest, is the whole tanking, NBA draft, that whole drama and talking point that's going on right now in the NBA. I mean, it's everywhere. You're hearing it talked about nonstop now. I've given my thoughts enough about it. I think people know where I stand on it. I'll give some brief thoughts at the end. But Zara, I just want, where do you stand with this whole tanking issue? Do you believe tanking actually is an issue? Do you think they should remove the NBA draft, which is one of the ideas? If you think tanking is an issue, do you have a solution that you maybe could throw out there that you think could work? Where are you at with this whole thing?
I'm really glad this is a topic today because it's something I've really been stirring on for the last few days or week, honestly. This is a non-issue. Tanking is completely a non-issue in the NBA. I think the effort in the All-Star break or in the All-Star game, obviously it was great, on Sunday. It was a great game, great tournament, whatever. It was a great showcase, 100%. I think effort in all-star game, dunk contest, whatever, is a also a non-issue. It is not an issue. These are the same regurgitated talking points that we get year after year. And ironically, it happens every single year once the Super Bowl ends, because now we need something to talk about nationally. And a lot of times there hasn't been enough attention paid to the NBA
Yes.
on a national scale to be given the respect and kind of nuanced discussion that it deserves. So when we get to this point of the year, every single year, it becomes a talking point about how the NBA is not what it used to be, or how the NBA has this issue or that issue. And in reality, the NBA is doing just fine. The NBA is actually having an incredible year. Um, the biggest issue to me with the NBA is the fact that when these talking points happen, the NBA itself, Adam Silver, the commissioner, treats them with respect, and he treats them with kind of a level of seriousness that it doesn't deserve. These talking points are not anything that really impacts the game. And Adam Silver makes the league look weaker as a result when he goes and says, yeah, tanking is an issue, or yeah, the effort in the All-Star game is an issue, because you're ultimately just bending the knee to whatever force of talking points ultimately is deciding they want to talk about. And that becomes a statement on the league. And I feel like the league itself has had such a banner year, truly, in terms of games, in terms of kind of a renewed sense of culture, not just with the Pistons, but I feel like across the league. I feel like it's been a lot of more team oriented kind of things going on. And I feel like it's been a lot of really great developments around the league, and it'd be great if the commissioner would stand on and respect the league that he actually represents. It's extremely frustrating to see year after year Adam Silver give in to talking point after talking point that is ultimately nonsensical and a non-issue, just for the fact that he feels the need to address them. And I seriously don't understand it. I feel like these are things that any other commissioner wouldn't give credence to or wouldn't give any sort of thought to. But for some reason, every year he makes the NBA look weak by ultimately addressing these things. It's great to be open minded, and it's great to be, adjusting to things as they come. When you look at betting or whatever, like, it's great to be open minded to anything, but you also have to come at things with a level of, I don't want to say dignity, but that it does kind of feel that way, right? Like, it feels like they're just throwing themselves at anything, and everything that gives them attention. And I feel like, the betting thing is its own discussion. And we don't probably have the time for that today, but I just feel like it's been too much of the NBA bending the knee to this discourse where it's had a great season.
I completely agree with you. And the other problem with the discourse, I believe, is that those having the discourse aren't honest people in general. The people that we are letting have this discourse and stir the pot are people who aren't the people that we should be having the discourse anyways. Stephen A. Smith should not be someone who's handling this discourse. Respectfully, ESPN should not be having the discourse. As you're talking about this, I went to pull this up. NBA on ESPN, I see a tweet. Are we seeing this through the wrong lens? Our bar, is this a good game, has really come down to, do the players just simply want to play hard? And they're not talking about the All-Star game. They're talking about the NBA in general. The NBA has a problem that they give voice and too much credence, like you said, to people who we should not give credence to and too much attention to. The NBA is in the best spot it's ever been, in my opinion. You have LeBron aging out, KD aging out, Steph aging, all the people from our childhoods aging out. And instead of the years before where we were like, oh God, what's going to happen when those guys leave? Is there going to be anybody? You got an alien on the Spurs who just made the entire All-Star game change and make people want to try, which was incredible. But since the All-Star game now was great, now we have to find someone else to tear the NBA down about because people just like talking trash about the NBA, apparently. You got Alien in San Antonio, who's tremendous. You got OKC, who's having who has been arguably one of the best defenses we've seen for the last year and a half. They're one of the only teams to win as young as they did. You got one of the best players we have ever seen in NBA history on the Denver Nuggets. You got the Houston Rockets coming up as a young team. You got Luka in LA, something you think the NBA would love. You got Anthony Edwards, the face of the NBA, in a Minnesota Timberwolves uniform. You got the Suns, who people thought maybe would start tanking and be bad this year, actually are pretty damn good this year. You got Steph still playing at an all-time level. That's just the Western Conference. In the East, you got Boston, who people thought were going to tank and be bad this year. They're second in the East. Jaylen Brown's playing tremendous. You got Cade Cunningham and the Pistons. Incredible story. The New York Knicks are back on top. They're back in the top of the East. They're actually being talked about for good reasons. The Cavs are good. The Raptors, a team in a different country, is good. You got Joel Embiid, healthy, playing. He's averaging 30 over the last 20 games. Like you got the Charlotte Hornets, who have been technically, according to net rating, the second best team since January 1st. You have more parity and more talent in this league than at any other point in its history. And instead of celebrating what I agree with you, is a hallmark season for the NBA. The old guys, they're playing well still. KD, Steph, LeBron is aging out gracefully. He's playing well, and they have a bunch of young guys coming up to take the mantle. It's been incredible hoops, but instead of just talking about that, which I want to give NBC and Peacock a great deal of credit because they actually do talk about the game and actually highlight the good stuff about the game and enjoy basketball. Instead of that, I have to sit here and listen to people complain. Instead of talking about any of those, I just named 20 teams. Instead of talking about those teams in a 30-man league or a 30-team league, instead I have to hear talking points from people in Los Angeles, New York, in these big markets talk about the Washington Wizards, the Indiana Pacers, the Brooklyn Nets, 3 teams in the East, the Kings, the Pelicans, and the Jazz. We got 6 teams out of 30 that are just flat out horrific that want top picks. I'm sorry. That is a non-issue. I sent out multiple Joakim Noah gifts today when he was talking about, I've never heard anyone say they want to play in Cleveland. Same thing here. I have never heard one NBA fan that talks about this stuff that says, man, I was really looking forward to that Wednesday night game with the Utah Jazz and the Brooklyn Nets. I can't believe the MPJ didn't play. Now my NBA fandom's ruined. I can't stay. Like, bro, this is such an annoying, as someone who's a fan of the NBA, I know you are obviously as well. It's so annoying that when there's so many good things going on, you complain about the All-Star game, you actually get a good All-Star game, and instead of talking about how great the All-Star game is, now we're talking about something else that people want to complain about that they actually don't really care about. Let's be honest. This is not actually an issue. The tanking is not an actual problem. Last point I'll say, and I'll let you go, on tanking. I said this earlier. I'll say it again. Though, if you are against tanking, you better have a solution that involves keeping the core point of the draft and tanking. And in my opinion, the core reason, the whole point of the NBA draft is to make the bad teams not good or not bad anymore. Is to help the bad teams be good so you don't have as many bad teams. If your solution is to get rid of the NBA draft, so now only the top 5 to 7 markets in the NBA get the good players, you're just keeping the bad teams bad. You're going to have a worse product anyways. Honestly, this lottery hasn't done a good job of it because you want to know how the Utah Jazz wouldn't have been tanking this year? And they would have kept the first pick and got to have Cooper Flag instead of falling. Like, you gave it to the Mavericks, who don't really need it, and now all the good teams, or all the awful teams, like we've seen the Pistons the last few years, fall to 5 and 6, and instead of getting their top prospect to take them out of the gutter, they have to keep doing it over and over until they actually get a franchise changer. Because let's be honest, the NBA, you're not doing anything unless you get one of those guys. So unless your solution comes with the core of, yeah, we don't like tanking, we don't like this, but this solution also will help teams that are bad. We don't want to punish the bad teams and make it to where they can't get out from the drought that it's going to be bad forever. Because all the solutions I've heard, that's all it's about. It's just people from big markets that simply are looking at it from Los Angeles and Boston's point of view of, you know what, let's just get rid of the NBA draft. Let's just give contracts. We shouldn't be helping the bad teams. Buddy, the point of the draft is to help the bad teams so they no longer are bad. None of us want them to be bad, but in the NBA, when one person makes such a big difference, you need that guy. So unless you have a solution that helps these bad teams get out of the dwellers, this is the best case we got. And it happens in all sports. Go ahead. I
Agreed.
know I went on a
No, you're
rant.
good.
But go
You're
ahead.
good. You're good. Because I feel the same way though. Like it genuinely like nothing gets under my skin more than when people talk so confidently and passionately about things that they just simply don't either A, understand, B, care to be knowledgeable about, or C, all of the above. And I feel like that's ultimately where a lot of this discourse comes from. And I feel like when you look at the tanking discourse, right? Like the people that are talking about this aren't acknowledging the fact that the 2026 NBA draft class is incredible. It is one of the best draft classes we have seen um, in I don't even know how long. Like the 2021 draft class was considered, one of the greats, and then 23, obviously, they got a lot of hype because of Victor Wembanyama, and then ultimately the Thompson twins kind of took a lot of that hype as well. But it was really Wemby. The 21 draft class and the 26 draft class. I think you look at the league and you say these are league changing drafts. Um, when you look at the 2027 NBA draft, there is not the same sentiment across the league. You can talk to anybody on any level of scouting across the NBA, or anybody who does the draft coverage on Twitter or any source of the internet. No one will tell you that the 2027 draft class is worth tanking for. And you can see that in the result of the teams that are currently bad. You look at the Wizards, who are actively tanking, right? They're one of the talking points in the league. They went out and acquired Anthony Davis and Trey Young at the deadline, and now they're set to be actually competitive next year. You look at the Utah Jazz, who went out and acquired Jaren Jackson Jr. They're having a transcendent season from Keontae George. Larry Markkinen's still on their team. They're going to extend Walker Kessler. They're building a culture and they're adding a top pick to it so they can be competitive next year. It's
The
really like
Pacers
mind
are going to
the
get Hallie
Pacers
back, and they're going to
exactly.
be good next year.
Exactly. The Pacers are getting Hallie back. They got Zubac at the deadline. Every team that's currently bad is putting itself in a position to be good next year. So I feel like this is a again, like we said, like non-issue. It's a non-issue because none of these teams are going to be taking again next year. The teams that ultimately end up getting the top draft picks in the 2027 NBA draft, A, had their season fall apart because of injuries, B, had horrible roster management, or C, are the Sacramento Kings because
Yeah.
they're the only team, they're
Yes.
the only
Yeah.
team that will probably look to be bad next season. And that's just because their roster fell apart and it's ultimately the end of an era in Sacramento. Outside of that, the NBA is absolutely 100% in the most transcendent, uh, incredible talent. Like there's so much parity across the league. I just it really bothers me that like this is what we're talking about when you look at like the amount of talent around the league, the amount of incredible storylines around the league. We ultimately talk about things that don't affect the game anyway, any shape anyway. And I think a lot of it really affects the integrity. I know we're running a little bit long here. A lot of it really affects the integrity of the game, especially when you look at reports and more reports about Kalshi and these things kind of being part of the game, and then Adam Silver having private discussions with these companies and stuff like that. And then a report comes out today where it was a lot of this tanking discourse is because betting
Yep.
companies put pressure on Adam Silver to have that discourse. It's really
It's
really
not even coming
frustrating
from an
and
honest place. It's just
exactly. Exactly, and it's exactly goes back to what I was saying earlier with Adam Silver kind of bending the knee too easily. This isn't something that a commissioner should have on his legacy. This is not something a commissioner should openly be like showing that he's bending the knee to betting companies because what does that say about the integrity of your league? That's ultimately getting to a great point, right? Like, because there's always going to be critics of the NBA who don't look at it fairly. That's just how it is. And when you have that level of criticism and people who don't come at the game with a level of fairness, you have to stand so firm on your beliefs and you have to really emphasize the integrity of the game. And when you do things like this that takes away from it, I really feel like it's a stain on the league and it's really disappointing to see. And then it makes questions around like Malik Beasley and Terry Rozier and all these guys, why they're not playing in the league even more questionable because okay, if they got banned or you know blackballed or whatever because of alleged misconduct, what's stopping anybody in any part of the league from kind of going into the same thing because it's clear that this is a priority. So it's really disappointing. And I feel like the league is actually in a great position, and it'd be great if the commissioner could actually recognize that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Last point, real quickly, we have to wrap it up. Everyone that's complaining about the whole tanking thing, none of them are actual fans of the team. Like, no one from those actual communities care about this. Like, go talk to, do Wizards fans want them to instead be 22-40 instead of, trying to get a top pick? What about the Nets? Do the Nets want them to be mediocre instead of trying to get a top pick so they can actually be good one day and compete? The Kings, do any of these teams, now the Pelicans, they traded their first round pick. We know about Troy Weaver and Joe. It is what it is. But these teams' fan bases, they're not the ones complaining. It's people from outside their fan base complaining for them when they don't want to complain. They know what they're doing. They know this is the betterment of their future. It's just, I think this is such a dumb conversation that we have to have when, like you said, there's so much good basketball going on. It's been such a great year, but instead we want to focus on a random Tuesday night where nobody was watching the Jazz game. No one who's complaining about that Jazz game was actually watching the Jazz game and was mad because they didn't get to see JJJ and Laurie close it out. No one was watching it. Can we stop with the performative outrage? This is ridiculous. That's all we've got for today. We ran a little bit long, but it was worth it. Zara, appreciate you coming on, man. You guys can follow him on Twitter, Instagram, all that. Zariq, Xavier. I appreciate all of you guys who make Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Stay safe out there, and peace out, everybody.